Welcome to week 5, guys. We've made it halfway through the course. This is the official halfway mark, and I'm really excited about what we've done so far. We've kind of done an intro to voice, what it is and how it works. Then we looked in week 2 at who your character is. Week 3 was why they're doing what they're doing. And then we started looking into how we translate that into voice. Last week was narrative distance, which is a biggie in this course, and just a biggie of voice. And not only because it starts looking practically at how you narrow that gap of distance between the reader and character, which is the big idea of voice anyway, is to get them closer to your character. And so we started doing that practically, but one of the biggest ideas is directly translate your character's thoughts. And so we'll keep pushing that idea through the rest of the course and keep doing practice runs in chat to help you keep recognizing it, so that you can recognize it in your own writing and keep learning how to just transcribe direct thoughts. Okay, this week's lesson is on point of view, and that may seem like just a duh concept. I know what point of view is. I know what first person point of view is. That means anything that's an I statement. I'm hungry, so I'm going to go grab some coffee. That's first person point of view, and third person point of view is he, she, Tom, and Shelby are going to go grab some coffee. They're starving. But there's a lot deeper to go into that, and you might not believe me, but trust me, there is. And so that's what I'm going to go into this lesson. Because, okay, so yes, first person point of view. These are the decisions that you have to make when you're going to write a story of any kind. Are you going to use first person? Are you going to use third person? And third person isn't just third person. I'll get into that in a second. So with first person, yes, it's using I, and it is almost like you're writing in your journal, or you're just telling a story like you tell a story to your friends. I was in the store, and there was this crazy lady talking on her cell phone, and she started, gabbing about her boyfriend and all this crazy stuff that was happening. So it's a very natural storytelling form, and at the same time, it's somewhat of a more modern storytelling form that has gotten more and more popular these days. So there are some advantages to telling a story in first person. So we're talking about distance, narrative distance, and an advantage to first person is you're directly putting the reader in the character's mind because you're using I. And so that's right away cutting down on the distance because you're just using I. You're like almost directly letting the reader put themselves in the body of your character. It can also be an easy way to help you get the hang of voice because you're literally also putting yourself in the character as I. So it more naturally can let you embody that character as you're thinking through and just pretending to be the character and talking as the character. So I found that helpful sometimes, even just as a practice, to use I. So that's another advantage. Another fun advantage is you can be an unreliable narrator, like in Gone Girl. If you're I, then the reader just kind of trusts you, and so you can lead them astray because you can just be telling them the story that you want them to hear, even if it's not necessarily the truth. So that's another fun thing you can do with first person. And some genres are more given to first person than others, like young adult and romance. So that's something to think about. And some readers in those genres say they do like first person better than others. But again, it's what feels most natural to you when you're writing. Yeah, and there are disadvantages too, and I'll go into that in the material. So now let's talk about third person. So, and you may have learned this in other writing classes or even in your, school when you were a kid. There's third person omniscient and third person limited. So third person omniscient, and just hang with me if you already know this, but if just as a refresher, third person omniscient is when it's talking as the point of view kind of God, the person who knows, a narrator who knows everything and can pop in and out of the viewpoint of any character because they know everything. Right, they know what's going on in everybody's head and can pop in at any time. So this was like Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And this is a very old-fashioned kind of writing where the narrator is set apart from the story but can just comment on anything going on. Now, while I say that, here's the big thing to pay attention to, because a lot of writers, and maybe you included, do this without thinking about it. You are writing this way, where you'll just comment about the day and age or the story or the town. The town was sleepy and, really settled, or it was, and then you'll go into a character's head, one character's head, and then you'll pop into a different character's head in the same scene, and that's generally not kosher how things are done today. What's used instead is limited third person. And so what limited third person is you hang out with one character and you stay in one person's head for a scene, and then if you want to jump into a different person's point of view, you can do that, but usually there has to be a scene break, and then you can jump into a different character's point of view. So that's limited third, and you only know what that character knows for that scene. So like Harry Potter is written in this way. So Harry never knows what Voldemort or anybody else is knowing throughout his scenes. Like, think if you knew what Snape knew the entire time, then all of the books would be ruined if we knew what Snape knew. And she never jumps into anybody else's head, and that's how you keep mysteries going. And so third person limited point of view is what a lot of most books are written in, because people want different points of view so that you can jump into different people's heads in a story, so you can keep up, mystery plots, or you aren't stuck in one person's head like first person, and you can see different parts of the story playing out. But the rule is you can't head hop. You can't mid-scene tell you what Carla is thinking and Ahmed and anybody else. You can't do that. And that's a very kind of amateur writing thing, or something that we have to grow out of as we learn how writing is done these days. It was something that people were even doing in the 70s and 80s, but now it's just not the way that writing goes. And so that's one of the most important parts about this lesson. And there are other things that we're talking about too, but as you learn, third person limited and first person, and some people, because they want this similar experience, they'll do alternating first person. Oh, right, and the other big thing about this lesson is if you're going to do these different voices, if you're going to do, multiple third person limited points of view in your novel, that's cool. But think about how many you're going to try to do, and for each of those voices, think about how difficult it is for us to establish one voice that sounds unique. And if you're going to do multiple voices, you have to do all of the work to make each of those voices distinct enough to stand on their own. Because the problem is, if you want a lot of voices, but you haven't done the work to make them sound distinct, then they all just sound like the same person. and your reader is going like, but wait, let me flip back to the chapter heading to see whose point of view this is supposed to be in, because the language sounds the same, the rest of the style sounds the same, so, and we'll learn more about that in the next week's lesson, language, on how to keep differentiating voices, because understandably, a lot of books are written in multiple points of view, but that's the trick. And so this week's reading, actually, I took 4 points of view from a single novel, and we'll start to look at how the writer worked to differentiate those. So you can read those, and only one of them is a little longer. It's 3 pages, but the rest are just like a page or a half page from that author, and the first section is like a little mini story that's 3 pages. But you can just even see in the sentence length, one of the characters kind of writes in paragraphs, the other writes in very short sentences that are all each their own paragraph. They write very choppily. So if you're going to choose to write in multiple points of view, I say choose as few as possible, because it's really difficult to make them sound separate. And then you have to work your tush off to really make them unique. But so, point of view, it's a big deal. Read all about it. And join me for chat this week. And remember, chat is kind of a very low-key thing. Anything that we talk about there, if we're going to talk about the reading, I introduce the paragraph or whatever we're going to be talking about in the chat, and then we discuss it. Also this week, the first 10 pages are really talking about point of view, and then the last 3 are about past and present tense, if you're interested in that. If you're not interested in, if you're choosing to write in past or present tense, then those last 3 pages aren't as necessary for you. Okay, and I look forward to chatting with you guys in chat. Okay, have a good week. Bye.